Oops, hit the wrong button. All right, welcome back. This is episode 6. I think the last one I'm going to have to make sure I change because I didn't change it to episode 6, and I think it said episode 4 still, so I'll have to change that. But jumping into episode number 6, not really episode. These aren't really like episodes. Part number 6 of this article. Jumping right in. I'm going to jump in right now. I'm not going to wait any more time. Just go right now. Okay. A federal... So we just talked about on the last one about Dr. Q, right? And how everyone brushed it under the rug. So here we go. A federal media relations officer continued the effort to deflect. Okay. We're doing this again. Haven't had any of this stuff happen in a while. Starting this episode over, guys. All right, welcome back to SJG Perspective. We are going to jump into episode number 6. Not really episode, but we left off on the last one with Dr. Q and how everyone brushed it under the rug. A federal media relations officer continued the effort of deflection by trying to make a really unusual, complex, and many-faceted story seem unremarkable. The commentator affirmed, the work of the NML continues in support of the health and safety of all Canadians. Lee West, an international affairs professor at Carleton University of Ottawa, went as far as venturing that national security issues might be involved. This statement calls for explanations that Canadian reporters have so far not seriously attempted. Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Danny Shoham is one of the most attentive figures outside Canada who responded especially quickly and skeptically to the perplexing questions raised by Dr. Q's activities. Dr. Shoham is a reserve member of the IDF. He continues his military responsibilities in the fields of biological and chemical warfare as a senior researcher in the Benign Sadat Center for Strategic Studies in Israel. So you have Dr. Q in Canada, who is a virologist doctor, worked on Ebola and crazy diseases and biowarfare type diseases. She's been back and forth to the Wuhan lab in China and Canada. She gets investigated by the equivalent of the FBI in China or in Canada. Her and her husband and her, a bunch of her staff. And then everybody brushes it under the rug and never comes out and says what they were doing there. Then we have tied to her this guy, Colonel Danny Shoham, who works for the Israeli Special Forces and who is responsibilities in the fields of biological, chemical warfare as a senior researcher in the Begin Sadat Center for the Strategic Studies in Israel. That guy. You can tell he's Israeli by his nose. In 2014, Dr. Shoham was a visiting scholar at the New Delhi-based Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, the IDSA. There, he collaborated professionally with the IDSA's deputy director, Brigadier Rumel Dahaya. Dr. Shoham devoted much of his time in India to studying what he refers to as China's biological warfare program. Dr. Shoham published his findings in 2015 in an integrative study where he commented at significant length on the makeup and structure of Chinese secretive military R&D initiatives in the alleged development of bioweapons. He maintains that these secretive military operations have been blended into the operations of ostensibly civilian facilities, where public health initiatives in disease prevention and treatment are often highlighted. I'm going to read that again. He maintains that these secretive military operations have been blended into the operations of ostensibly civilian facilities, where public health initiatives in disease prevention and treatment are often highlighted. So he's saying that they're doing their R&D on the bad stuff in places that they say we're only studying for vaccines and good stuff. Dr. Shoham notes that the government of China became a signatory in 1984 to UN's Biological Weapons Convention of 1972. The Israeli academic alleges, however, that China, a target of U.S. biological war in the Korean War in early 1950s, opted to secretly retain some continuing capacities in this military field. Dr. Shoam has cast himself as an insistent whistleblower, calling attention to the provocative circumstances attending the shipment from Canada to China of virulent pathogens. Dr. Shoam indicated that Dr. Q's research has been conducted not only on behalf of the governments of Canada and China. Dr. Q has also collaborated with 3 scientists from the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases in Maryland. Much of her success, however, is connected to her obtaining many grants from China, all on the national level. In July through December 2019 issue of the IDSA Journal, Dr. Shoam explained, "But the collateral Chinese plexus cannot be ignored. Married to a Chinese scientist, Dr. Keding Chang, also affiliated with the NML, that's the place up in Canada, the biolab up in Canada, and primarily a bacteriologist who shifted to virology." These words are giving me trouble. Dr. Q frequently visited and maintained tight bonds with China, generally speaking, and many Chinese students joined her works in the NML during the recent decade, coming from a notable range of Chinese scientific facilities. Nonetheless, among the latter, there are 4 facilities that have been regarded to possess parts of the Chinese biological weapon alignments, namely the Institute of Military Veterinary, Academy of Military Medical Sciences, Chengcheng, Center for the Disease Control and Prevention, Chengdu Military Region, Wuhan Institute for Virology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, Hubei, and Institute of Microbiology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, Beijing. I know that last one. All of the 4 mentioned facilities collaborated with Dr. Q within the context of the Ebola virus. Yet the Institute of Military Veterinary joined a study on the Rift Valley fever virus, while the Institute of Microbiology joined a study on the Marburg virus too. Noticeably, the drugs used in the latter study, favipiravir, I have no freaking clue how to say that, favipiravir, has been earlier tested successfully by the Chinese Academy of Military Medical Sciences with the designation JK05. That's way easier. Originally a Japanese patent registered in China already in 2006 against Ebola and additional viruses. Favipar has been early tested successfully in the Chinese Academy of Military Sciences with the designation JK05 against Ebola and additional viruses. However, the studies by Dr. Q are considerably more advanced and fruitful in certain aspects. They are apparently vital for the Chinese biological weapons developing. In case Ebola, Nipah, Marburg, or Rift Valley fever viruses are included therein, which is a plausible postulation, let alone the wild-type viruses in themselves. And it is of note that only Nipah virus is naturally found in China or neighboring countries. Collectively, then, the interface between Dr. Q and China has a priori been highly suspicious. On top of it, the shipment of the 2 viruses from NML to China apparently generated an alarm beyond its seeming inappropriateness. And an unavoidable question is whether previous shipments of China or other viruses or other essential preparations took place from 2006 to 2018, one way or another. Kind of makes me wonder then. I'll save that thought. Okay, I've been streaming 9 minutes too. It has not gone unnoticed that this episode at the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg may be intertwined with the mounting diplomatic tensions between the governments of Canada and China. The controversy is unfolding in a way that adds new uncertainty to the controversy instigated in December of 2018 with the Canadian government's decision to arrest, detain, and put on trial the Huawei cell phone company's executive Meng Wanzhou. Many have questioned the dubious nature of the decision to arrest a Hawaii official in Vancouver for allegedly violating U.S. law pertaining to sanctions against Iran. That is suspicious now. With everything we know, what's happening there, we could literally be this could have been us striking them. I don't know. I'm whiteboarding right now, but this could have been us striking them, putting that into their population. I think it would have been a black ops type operation. I don't believe Trump is associated with it. It could have been done without his knowledge. A lot of stuff is. But it could be something to start literally a full on. We could literally be in a full on war. And maybe the whole freak out that that's happening here is because they know, China now knows that we did it, and we now know someone did it. And they know that they're going to release, this is just me whiteboarding, that they're going to release something on us, and they're getting us ready for it. I don't know. See, this is the part that gets so damn confusing because of all the disinformation and all the obstruction and just the truth. It is not going to notice, and okay, I read all that. The future role of Hawaii systems for 5G wireless communication, a frightening and largely untested public health hazard in its own right, has emerged as a core issue in the conflict between the United States and China. To conceive of this conflict as a trade war alone is to underestimate the full scope of the antagonisms. These antagonisms over the future of wireless communications extend, for instance, far into the shape and form of future international espionage. Since the era began nearly 20 years ago of the 9/11 psychological operation, much international espionage has taken place by means of backdoor spying on digital flows of information. Israel has become especially closely identified with this type of digital spying throughout the internet. The Chinese strategy for achieving traction in this competitive milieu is to apply breakthroughs in digital computation and communications. The strategy is to integrate innovations in artificial intelligence, AI, and cutting-edge developments in biotechnology. This methodology is understood by some Chinese students of geopolitics as integral to the military process of preparing a new domain for warfare. This digital and biological theater of rivalry, the new gene splicing capacities of CRISPR technology, constitute a formidable new tool for major and irreversible interventions into life's most fundamental cycles of death and renewal. The ability to alter the genetic makeup of organisms, including human organisms, is thereby becoming a key facet in establishing new domains for warfare, including various forms of hybrid warfare. More elements in China's geopolitical strategy have come to light as the Wuhan. Okay, let's save this one for the next one. I kind of feel like that's a good place to switch to the next one. All right, guys, you know the drill. I'm going to record another one and put it up here. So stay tuned for the next episode. And we're about halfway through this article. It's a long one. So anyways, talk to you soon. Bye.